According to the Minister of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries, Barbara Creecy, coal will continue to be part of South Africa's energy mix throughout the 2040s. At the Mining Indaba in Cape Town this week, she outlined 5 key issues to consider in the context of South Africa's just energy transition. The Minister joins us now via Zoom to discuss this further. We've just had this Mining Indaba, also the State of the Nation address, Minister. Coal not going anywhere anytime soon. How do we balance that with moving to more renewable sources of energy?
Good morning and greetings to all your viewers at home. Well, I think that what we have always understood is that the transition to a low carbon economy and a climate resilient society is the task of a generation. What this means is that at a speed and a pace our country can evolve, we have to meet the commitments we have made to the UN Climate Commission, our commitments to lower our nationally determined contribution to creating greenhouse gases. But we have to do this in a way that promotes energy security, that meets the fundamental development needs of our economy, and of course builds climate resilience as we go forward.
And what happens if we fail? Is it possible that we are simply not going to meet those targets despite our best efforts?
Well, as they say, life doesn't come with a guarantee. But I think that there are a range of issues that will determine whether we are more likely to succeed or more likely to fail. Obviously, the first of those is to make sure that we have a clear policy environment, and currently the climate bill is before the National Assembly, and that lays out the architecture through which we will achieve the commitments that we have made to the United Nations. Secondly, money is the big issue. What we understand is that across the globe there is a major transformation taking place to greener forms of industrialization and greener forms of energy generation. But this requires substantial investment. Last year we developed an investment plan for the initial $8.5 billion that we have been offered by developed countries. And we found that over the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to need somewhere in the region of 1.5 trillion rand in order to effect transitions in energy towards electric vehicles and also to develop the green hydrogen economy. Now, this figure is clearly very daunting. And I think that what we need to understand is that there's considerable interest and appetite in South Africa's transition. Firstly, as I was pointing out at the Mining Indaba, we have considerable benefits in terms of generation of renewable energy. South Africa is in the top 5 sunniest countries in the world, and also in the top 10 windiest countries in the world. So that obviously gives us an important natural resource. We're also endowed with significant minerals, what they term the minerals of the future. We are one of the largest platinum producers in the world. We have significant deposits of a whole range of other minerals that we need to promote battery storage, which is a necessary component if one is working with renewables. So I think the tone of the input that I was giving at the Indaba was to say that there are risks, but there are also considerable opportunities, and it's important we start to organize ourselves to take advantage of those opportunities.
I mean, we know that there were those 600 million rand euro climate loans from France and Germany combined, with some desirable interest rates as well, decades over which South Africa can repay them. But you haven't answered my question on what happens if we fail to meet those targets despite our best efforts. I understand there is a comprehensive plan here. There is an appetite, as you say. There are plenty of opportunities with the likes of solar energy amongst those other options, including desirable minerals to look at. But But what happens if we don't fail? What are the odds or the stakes here, Minister?
Well, I think that one of the fundamental, we are facing two risks with regard to climate change. The one is what we call a physical risk. So that is a risk of extreme weather events, the impact on human health and well-being, on food security and on built infrastructure. But we also face what we term an economic transition risk. And what's happening is that as our major trading partners are transitioning to lower carbon forms of production, they are going to be introducing measures to protect those investments from competition from goods and services produced in high carbon economies. So we're already seeing the European Union, one of our major trading partners, introducing what we call carbon border tariffs. We have this threat that from 2035, cars with internal combustion engines will no longer be accepted into the European Union. So what we understand is that unless we are also working on transitioning our own economy, we could face a situation where our goods and services are not competitive in the international market, and where we find that we have decreased market opportunities for important areas of industrialization, such as, for example, our motor vehicle production.
So in your speech on Wednesday, you mentioned the word perma-crisis right at the beginning. This is, for those of us who didn't know before, an extended period of instability and insecurity in the current situation that informed by the crisis, the war in Ukraine, the global energy crisis and inflation. You've also mentioned the energy crisis in South Africa and the need for energy security in order to look at things like just transition in South Africa. How much confidence do you have that the plans the President has announced in terms of the national state of disaster and indeed an energy minister will feed into resolving maybe South Africa's perma-crisis of, the last odd years with load shedding?
Well, I think the President outlined important plans to promote energy security. He also suggested a significant way in which these plans can be managed and ensure implementation. I think one of the criticisms generally of government is that we have good plans, but we don't always implement as needed. So I think that my understanding of his speech was that he was trying to answer both the question of the plan and the means of implementation. I think that in the current global situation and in the current situation in which we find ourselves, the only way to manage multiple forms of crisis and multiple difficulties is to get ahead of the curve, as they say. We're not going to, I think that the World Economic Forum was suggesting to us that we're not going to be entering smooth sailing waters as a country or as a globe anytime soon. But the important thing is that we try and build resilience to implement plans, and we also try to ensure that we have an understanding of the risks that we face so that we can take appropriate decisions.
Minister, just rounding off, to come back to your speech, you mentioned China and India and the fact that they currently use coal. However, their renewable build tells us they fully understand the economic transition risk that lies ahead and have absolutely no intention of being cut out of future trade markets. Sounds there like it's a both-and situation when it comes to coal, maybe perhaps for South Africa too, based on your predictions of coal into the 2040s. Do you have confidence that there is more and more alignment between different cabinet members on how to communicate and consider South Africa's energy mix moving forward up to 2050, particularly the Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy, Gwede Mantashe?
Our cabinet is guided by the Integrated Resource Plan. The 2019 plan is on the table, and that's what's guiding our current energy mix. The Minister has indicated that he is beginning a process of developing a new IRP. That process will be a consultative process. We will all have an opportunity to comment on it. And that the independent resource plan will always guide Cabinet on what the energy mix should be.
Minister, thank you very much for your time after the Mining Indaba speech, and we will keep an eye on that just energy transition and energy in general into the next few years. Minister of Environmental Affairs there, Barbara Creecy, this morning. We're going to